we are live. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video from Superior V2, the only YouTube channel who combines gaming and finance. So, what a week, and a lot of things have happened here since, pretty much 2 weeks. We have had a lot of talks about the Epstein and Trump files being a total scam. What is happening here? So, first, Trump went to election saying he would release the Epstein files. And many of his followers and voters did vote for him for his transparency and for actually being some kind of hero going to finally get the judgment of the people involved on the Epstein Island. Well, what a shocker. I don't think so. He made a 360 and suddenly the Epstein list is a conspiracy made by Obama. And hear me out on this. The Democrats. So now all of a sudden, it's a conspiracy. It's very strange. I mean, what is actually going on? And reporters were asking him in on a live interview that, what about the Epstein files and the list? And Trump answered, well, we got so many other things to focus about, so many good things we are doing here. Why are you mentioning the Epstein list here? So it's a total sham, it's a total scam, and people are waking up and getting really, really angry at this. So, I must say, I think that YouTube some kind of way isn't liking to publish stuff about this. So I tried to make a video about, there was this camera recording from the prison where allegedly an expert in video editing were checking the files, and the files were suggesting they were edited multiple times in Adobe Premiere Pro, specifically saved and then re-edited and saved and then re-edited and then uploaded to the Department of Justice website. I mean, that's not how it's supposed to be. It is supposed to just the standard file, video file from the prison straight up to Department of Justice website. That's how it's supposed to be. It shouldn't be edited multiple times in Premiere Pro before it is actually uploaded to Department of Justice website. That's insane. So, however, in today's episode, I want to speak about the debt in the United States. With debt, it's loaned money that is not paid, but has to be paid in the future. I mean, the debt in the United States are growing at a level that is unprecedented. It has grown to an insane, I think it's $37 trillion at the moment. And I got one really good thread we are going to go through together from X, or former Twitter. We will go to the US Debt Clock website and just check some stats there, how it looks at the moment. And we will also go to a very, very interesting website. This website is visualizing the debt, so it's much easier to understand that way instead of just talking numbers. Then you can actually see how insane the US debt is at the moment, right? So my Twitter, I have been following very smart people for a long time. So the sources that I have and get with the information that is, I mean, today's information, it is non-stop. It's just information, information, and it's a lot of bullshit, but it's also some good stuff. But the thing is that somehow governments are corrupted and they really, really want good news published, sorry. And they want them published and they want to scream about it and pop a champagne and blow the champagne in their face. While the negatives, or to say the least, the corruption, has no light in the spotlight. No room in the spotlight, so to say. So, we will first go and check the visualization of the US debt at the moment and the world debt. So, we are going to demonocracy.info. This website was released years ago, and the problem is still there. And many people have seen this, but many people have not. So we can start with how much money was printed in 2020. So you see, at first, the global economy during COVID was going to collapse. No shit about it. It was going to die. I mean, all the economic data that was released during that time suggested the most horrible economic crash in the history of mankind. But what happened was that central bankers did inject so much money. I mean, so much money into the system. They were, what I've heard, also buying baskets of stocks with this money. And they funneled the money to big banks like Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and other big banks. And they used the liquidity to push the markets higher. And many people were like caught off guard with the rebound that happened in 2020. But we had gold and we had Bitcoin. Those two assets were saying something different. So when gold and Bitcoin rise, mainly gold, since Bitcoin is kind of new, so it haven't really experienced to be a safe haven doing a real wind off crash. So we gotta look and see how Bitcoin will be a safe haven or not during the next crisis. However, gold showed exploding over 100% now. It's at all-time high. Bitcoin also at all-time high. Stocks at all-time high also. But what is happening is that people are loaning, governments, people, hedge funds, whatever, all the institutions with money are buying bonds from the United States, which is an investment who gives a return percentage-wise, like a bank. So it can give 1%, it can get 2, it can get 5, it can get 10, depending on how much ask it is for it, so to say. So if the bonds are at 4%, investors might buy these to get a 4% return over a 10-year period, for example. But during times when, for example, the dollar is falling, they need to actually raise this, or they won't buy the bonds. So the market are pricing higher rates in the United States because the demand isn't there, or the risk is too high. So what is happening now is that the risk is so high that the rates are going higher even though inflation is going down. And we are seeing this same thing in Japan. But I will show you later in the stream the amazing thread on X that a specific user has done that is very explanatory even for people that aren't really into economics and macro data. For your knowledge, drinking green tea, it's amazing for your skin health and overall brain activity, I was gonna say. But it's good for your brain. All right. So the 10 trillion 2020 economic stimulus by the Federal Reserve. So here is just a visualization to show you how massive, I mean massive, enormous amounts of money that was injected into the system. So it was 10 trillion. Here's $100, $10,000, $1 million, $100 million. This is much. I mean, it's a lot. Here is $100 million. Equals 1 year of work for 3,500 average Americans. Here is $1 billion. Oh shit, sorry. This little boy here. But this is the amount of people. Yeah, $1 billion. It's a lot. And if we go here, 27 billion average printed per day in 2020. So 27 billion were printed per day in 2020. Look at the amounts. That's one day. And if you see here is all these people. And you just see all the stacks. And here we have $1 trillion. I mean, it's a it's a football field of money. $2 trillion. $20 trillion. 400 billion. 1.6. 4 trillion. This is just pure, I will not curse, pure insanity. This is insanity. And where do you think all this money went? You see, these are bank buildings. At least I am saying that. The money went to the banks and to the rich people. Mainly. And a little chunk of this has gone to the people. All right. Did you know this? I mean, this is quite amazing. It's very stunning to see the amounts that was printed during 2020. And today they are continuing. We don't have a pandemic, but we have the biggest greatest bubble in history of mankind, all hidden in bonds and the markets and assets. It will get bad. It will. It's not a question if, it's when. And we are at the moment not seeing big signs yet. But we have some problems with the rates and the bond market. So we will go now and talk about bonds. Here is the thread. I will read this because I will not be able to memorize all this. We will check it together, and if you have any questions, please ask me in the chat. So, let's see here. I just have to go and check, so this live stream actually is public. I've had some previous problems with my live streams being they were being private, so I was streaming without people having the possibility to actually participate in the live stream. We will see here. Okay, we go there. Let's go there. Live. We are live. We are editing. Checking. All right, it looks like we are public. Fantastic. Just give me a minute here. Before we jump into the bond market and why it's a big problem, hang on there. Okay, so Japan's bond market is spiraling into chaos. Yields are exploding, liquidity is vanishing, trust is evaporating. Let me break down what's happening in Japan and how this affects the United States. Here we have a picture of Japanese yields, which are on the rise once again. So, bond yields across Japan's 20, 30 and 40-year maturities have surged to historical levels. The 40-year yield just hit 3.689% and the 30-year reached 3.15%. For Japan, a country used to near zero rates for decades, this is a financial earthquake. Let's start with the basics. A bond is a loan. When you buy a government bond, you are lending money to the government in exchange for regular interest payments and a full repayment at a future date called maturity. Yeah. The yield is your effective return. It moves inversely to the bond price. So when investors sell bond and prices fall, yields go up, because future payments now represent a higher return relative to the cheaper price. Yields up is prices down, which results in market fear. So, why are Japanese investors dumping their bonds? Because they are losing faith in Japan's ability to repay debt without creating inflation or collapsing growth. And when confidence breaks, people want out. Japan's debt to GDP ratio, a key measure of national debt compared to the size of its economy, is now about 260%. That's worse than any other developed country. Even during Greece's crisis, it never reached that level. Japan is in uncharted territories. To make matters worse, inflation has returned to Japan after decades of stagnation. Inflation hit 3.6 in March 2025 and has been above the Bank of Japan's 2% target for 3 straight years. Rising inflation eats away at the value of bond payments, making fixed interest less attractive. And it's not just inflation, it's accelerating inflation. The Bank of Japan is reportedly preparing to raise its inflation forecast at its next policy meeting. Why? Because food prices are soaring, especially rice, which has doubled year over year, its biggest jump since 1971. That's a long time ago. Inflation matters because it erodes the value of fixed bond payments. If you're earning the same return, but prices are rising, you are effectively losing money. So when inflation rises, investors demand higher yields or they just sell. That sounds bad. Well, in short, the Bank of Japan is stepping back and the market is being left on its own. And without the Bank of Japan acting as a buyer of last resort, bond prices are collapsing and yields are ripping higher. So, yeah, that's one thing. The central bankers are manipulating the market. So they are buying their own bonds to keep rates lower. They print money and buy bonds. So the yields are not rising or the rates are not rising. And that is pure manipulation. And that's what many expert economists are warning about, because if you are doing that, you are, I mean, it's just not, if you think about it yourself, it does not sound like a healthy economy doing it that way. Because then the demand is not there, but the central bank print the money and buy the bonds. And now they holding the bonds. And what happens if the bonds value are collapsing? And this is not a shocker. Politicians are making things worse. We all know that politicians are just always kicking the can down the road. They don't want to be responsible for crisis times, so they do whatever they can, even if it hurts the future, not to get it during their term. With Japan's election coming up on July 20, parties are promising tax cuts, cash handouts, and more stimulus, even as the country already spends 25% of its entire budget on interest payments alone. This combination, rising inflation, political pressure to spend more, and central bank retreat, is making investors deeply uneasy, and the sell-off is hitting super long bonds the hardest. Super long bonds are those that mature in 20, 30 or 40 years. They are the most sensitive to inflation and long-term fiscal risks because so much can go wrong over decades. If you don't if you don't trust a government to stay solvent over the long haul, you don't want to hold its 40-year debt. There's another layer. Liquidity is drying up. Liquidity means how easily you can buy or sell something without moving its price. And right now, Japan's bond Japan's bond market is so thin that every sale triggers major price swings. For years, the Bank of Japan owned over half of all Japanese government bonds. Now that it's pulling back, there is no one big enough to fill the gap. Without a buyer of last resort, every shock hits harder. I mean, yeah, just amazing. For years, the Bank of Japan. Oh, yeah. So, how bad is it? A Bloomberg index tracking bond market volatility just past levels seen during the 2008 global financial crisis. That's not just unusual, it's historic. Here is why it matters beyond Tokyo. When Japanese yields rise, Japanese investors start selling their US treasuries and foreign assets to bring money home. That pushes up US borrowing costs, even if the Fed isn't raising rates. It also means a stronger yen and potentially a weaker dollar. That can spark turmoil in global currency markets, especially in emerging economies that rely on dollar denominated debt. So, does this sound familiar? US debt is soaring, interest cuts are exploding, inflation remains sticky, politicians keep promising more spending, the Fed is walking a tightrope between tightening and panic. Japan may just be 5 years ahead of where the US is heading. Yeah, they might be 5 years ahead, but US is a much bigger economy. So the consequences are much worse in the United States. So, the United States bond market is already starting to show cracks. The average maturity of US debt is shortening, investors are demanding higher yields, and the Fed is no longer the primary buyer of treasuries. It's a slow motion version of Japan's drama. So, what happens next in Japan? If the opposition cuts taxes, debt grows. If the ruling party spend more, debt grows faster. If the BOJ delays rate hikes again, market lose even more trust. There's no painless exit. This is no longer about policy, it's about credibility. When markets stop believing a government can control its debt or inflation, they revolt. And that revolt starts with bonds. I hope you found this thread helpful. Follow me at _investing_Q for more info. Yeah. Stock market news at Twitter. So very well written. Very well written. I don't know what to say about this. But it feels like there is a lot of unresponsibility here. They will not fix this without the markets forcing it to be fixed. I must say, shit, that's insane. That's insane. And of course, we got amazing. Let's see here. Let's jump. Yeah, I've made a couple of videos on YouTube about allegedly Jeffrey Epstein list and why it's not released. Some really sick information, but YouTube somehow doesn't like this to come out. And American people should be pretty mad at what their government are doing. So we are hitting the tape here. First of all, some of my followers are quite, how to say this, they have their own like religion about markets, and some people are very bearish and some people are very bullish. I like to follow both and try to like collect the information and sort out what's bullshit, what's right. Is this an interesting thesis? Is this not? And so on. This guy has have had many rights but many wrongs. And one thing that I've heard was that many of these big profiles are working. They are working for Wall Street, the banks, the CBOE, the options empire, and it's to mislead people. Because if you can find people that are very good at convincing people that now is a market top, you get a flood of people who are bearish, doing bearish option bets, while the banks are instead taking the opposite trade. And in a trade, it's always a winner and a loser. All right. So I don't know if this is a conspiracy, but people like this guy who has 250,000 followers, there's other people also. If they can get people to invest $1,000 to get short, the banks will kill these guys and take their money. So I don't know, it might be a conspiracy, but when markets tend to be so high and only grinding one way up, people want to short it. And the banks know this, even though the companies like Nvidia and Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, you name it, are at all-time high. They're totally overpriced. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the flows. And they will do everything to suck the money they can from people, with the help of maybe guys like this, who are very convincing that markets are going higher or lower. Right? Here we have a nice report. Let's see. El Salvador lied about 2025 Bitcoin buys. A new IMF report says El Salvador hasn't bought any Bitcoin since its loan deal, despite daily purchase claims. The Chivo wallet shows no real accumulation. Officials confirms public Bitcoin holdings remains unchanged. What? Isn't that a crime? That sounds like a crime to me. Let's see how Bitcoin have reacted to this. A little dip. Nothing major. It's down 0.23%. Let's see here. Maybe the news haven't hit the tape yet and it's weekend. Interesting. This guy is amazing. He's called the Sun Weatherman. He's doing the space weather news. So he has a theory that is quite convincing, that all the major changes in climate actually depends on the sun and not all the ashes we spew out in the air. So the sun is so powerful and it has its cycles. So the cycles itself are causing magnetic shifts on the earth, and the pole magnetic shifts are shifting very rapidly at the moment. We are in a cycle, late in a cycle, and these are creating earthquakes, weather phenomena. We're having heat, drought, extreme rain, and so on. But it's actually not the climate change that the governments are saying, that we are spitting out too much CO2. It's actually the sun and the pole shift and the magnetic fields that are causing this. And when the sun is having a solar storm, it's causing it's impacting Earth and the magnetic field, which causes earthquakes, volcano eruptions, and more. So it's a very interesting theory. This guy, Space Weather News, follow him on Twitter, also on YouTube. He has some really good knowledge about this. He is a very sharp guy. Though he's a little bit doom and gloom, it's quite scary actually. What he's saying is coming, so I wouldn't, if you're having a hard time with the climate and so on at the moment, maybe you shouldn't look at his channel. But otherwise, if you're curious and you would like to understand more about the sun and its impact on Earth, follow this guy. He's quite amazing. Let's see, we can take For You and see. Oh shit, Elon Musk tweeted July 18. Wow, I can't believe Epstein killed himself before realizing it was all a hoax. Good one. I mean, Elon knows for sure. And he is mad, and he ain't afraid to get clipped, if you say so. That's amazing. We will see here. Not a short fantasies, just structural math, depth clips, and denial. The 2026-27 crash isn't coming, it's loaded. $2,000. Oh, I don't know. We'll see. What the fuck? What is that? No, it must be photoshopped.
All right, everyone. I think we call it for day. For today. I mean, yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and please, if you haven't done this already, subscribe to my channel and post a like, and also throw a comment. Until then, until next time, see you and have a nice continuation of your